Hello there, thank you so much for checking out this video. I created this for the students who completed my Skillshare class called Organic and Expressive Florals, and this was my first ever Zoom workshop, so please bear this in mind because the sound is sometimes a little bit funny and there's a little bit of ums and ahs, but I hope that I have captured the vibe of this beautiful workshop that took place. It was wonderful for all of us to get together. There was about 25 ladies in all, and it was a beautiful connection. Thank you so much for joining me for my florals workshop. I was saying to some of the others, I'm just completely astounded by the quantity and quality of work. The projects that you posted was just breathtaking. I was so chuffed, there's that word again. I was so pleased that you had really embraced all the studies. You could really tell, gone through that process, you understood so much more when it came to the final colour study, and I wanted to put together this workshop. It's a new venture for me, but I'm hoping that there will be a lot more. And I'm going to be demonstrating this, which is this. I wanted to obviously use wildflowers. However, there has been a lot of storms in England and I was unable to get hold of any, so I will be demonstrating using a shot put floral. And when I've painted the first layer, the first wash, I'll be opening a video again for your questions. In the meantime, if you have a question, please put it in the chat or write down on a piece of paper and I will be able to answer your questions then. I have a camera set up here, so please bear with me while I share my screen. There we go. Please can you give me a thumbs up if that looks all right. I am going to go straight into painting this lovely chrysanthemum. I was talking quickly about the materials that I'm going to use. If you've taken my class, you'll know that I love to use quill pens. Today, I'm probably going to use the number 2. I bought this in Jackson's and I love it because it just holds so much pigment and so much water. And this is the watercolour set that I use. In your honour, I have cleaned half of it. I normally don't clean it at all. That will be the first half, and then the second half I'll be using the dip pen and inks. I think I will most likely use this is called the Blue Pumpkin nib. I'll probably use that, and it's a Kuretake handle. And my favourite ink is the peat brown from Winsor Newton, and I was able to get hold of some Fabriano paper. It came in a massive pack. I'm really happy to be using it and it's just right. It's not too textured and it's not too smooth. So you are quite welcome to paint along with me, or if you are watching this later, hopefully you can keep up. I know all of you took my florals class, so to begin with, I will be concentrating on the floral heads first. I'm going to be mixing up a light pink wash. I will start dropping in colours. First of all, I'm going to mix up, I will be using Opera Rose, which I adore. It's so vibrant and almost luminous. So let's mix up some of that. A little bit more. So it's kind of a medium light wash. And looking at where the flower heads are, we got these little flower heads here, which are very pale, and then they sort of gradually add more colour. And we are going to pretty much follow the same sort of setup. And again, I'm just going to work with shape. And these little flower buds, they're just opening up. So they're not, they don't go wide like that. And then the next one up is almost directly above it. I'm going to work quite quickly because I love using wet on wet, and in order for the colours to merge, we have to get the next set of pigments on pretty fast while it's, and again, we're just concentrating on shape. We're not trying to get in details at this stage. It's almost like trying to come up with the structure, and there's a central stem that comes down here, which I will add in, but this floral up here is like the tippy top. I think it needs that's more like that. And there's one next to it around about here. There are some other florals happening in the background, but I don't want to overcomplicate things. If you're able to squint, as I'm able to, you'll have a much better idea of where these floral heads are placed. There's one about here, a little bit lower, about there. I'm just running out of this Opera Rose wash. There's a little bud about here. So now I am going to add the much darker, I need a little bit more of the permanent magenta, actually. This pink is quite cool. It's almost purple in places. Oh yes, oh, I love it when it does that. Let's mix up a little bit more. Yeah, so I think I'm going to go down the magenta route. And on this floral, it's here and here. It just seems to be on that side. If I squint, the darker areas, or the ones with the petals are darker, if we move on to this top one here, they mainly seem to be on the left, down there. And then quickly add some at the back here. And again, I am not trying to add too much detail. That can come much, much, much later down the line. Let's just try and get the shape down, because all the time this pigment is drying, and I'm just going to leave that one there, I think. So now we're going to mix up some green. I'm going to use a yellow ochre as the base of this green wash. There we go. So it's quite warm, but then I'm going to add, I think, a little bit of the cobalt green. Let's add a touch of the lemon yellow. And again, I want this to be quite a gentle wash, because I will be adding much darker greens later on, but I need to get in this central stem. So the, I can't remember what this bit underneath the flower is called. Receptacle, I think it's called the receptacle. So this stem is a little bit wonky, but the guide for the central stem is here. So this is the central stem, and it bends this way and that way, but it joins to about here. And I'm going to quickly add the others. So these two go right down here, but they join up first. So I'm using the green to put in the receptacles. I hope you can still see. Sorry, I'm concentrating on this, but I'm hoping you're getting a clear picture here. And there's a leaf in the way, which I might add in a little while. So that goes all the way down here, and the central stem. I know it looks like a very vivid green at the moment, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, it doesn't look like that. But we are going to add a few more blues in a little while. So let's carry on with adding the stems really, really quickly, because I personally like it when the petals merge with the stem. And there is a leaf in the way, which I will add in a little bit. So I've made a note that there is a leaf there. So that's that one. And this one comes from this floral here. There we go. Oh, I've just noticed there's another flower. Ooh, you know, I'm not going to add it because it would spoil the balance, I think. There's actually a leaf here. Just going to quickly add the shape of that. This one, yeah, you can't see where this stem joins this central one because there's actually a leaf in the way. So we're almost there. So this one joins at an angle. Again, you can't see it because of the leaves are in the way. Just a few more now. I will be going back to add the leaves, and we'll be adding a lot more contrast in a little while. But let's, I just needed to get the framework sorted first. And yeah, so this one is just a little bud, and that really sort of joins here. Proportionally, it's not accurate, but that's fine. So now I think I'm going to mix up a little bit more using the ochre and what was it, the bit more cobalt green, and managed to flood my lemon yellow with green, but it's okay. Oh, that's too much lemon yellow now. I think actually at this stage I might add a tiny bit of indigo, just the tiniest hint of indigo. Yeah, that's just enough. Starting with this leaf I can see here. Whoops, there's a drip. But that's fine because there's a leaf there anyway. And this does a beautiful curve and it joins onto there. I'm just going to concentrate on the shape. I'm not going to start adding any other pigment just yet. And there's another one here that joins onto that stem there. And I'm squinting, looking at the shape. I've got lovely sort of scalloped edges. Yeah, I'm now looking at the shape of this leaf here. I push it up a bit, this leaf here. And overlaps. I think I need a tiny bit more ultra. Oh, that's a bit too much now. Oh, doesn't matter because we were going there anyway. But I do need to work fast because this paint is really starting to dry fast now. So let's quickly add some other leaves. I said there was one here, that's why I've left space there. I don't necessarily, thinking ahead, I don't necessarily have to add the entire leaf shape because remember I can add more information using ink line. Goes in the background and it joins onto this one here. And then other leaves, there's one behind this one, so it corresponds roughly here. Having the ink coming at a later stage is like a backup, and it allows me anyway to work that bit freer because I know I can go in again and add more information if I think it needs it. And even though I've painted this is now the third time I've painted it, they're all going to look slightly different because I've made slightly different decisions. Something like that. And I find that I can be more accurate using a pen and nib. So that's why it looks a little bit shapeless. Forms. It could do with more form, but it's coming. Because it's really, really dark. This is actually a good opportunity to start adding darker pigments in other areas here. Oh, that might be a tad too dark. Just rinse that out. Go, and then, so this leaf also does a beautiful curve movement. Sort of like an S shape. So I've sort of inverted that. Let's take that off. Yeah, more like that, more like that. So now at this stage, I will start introducing the much darker pigments. And if you followed my florals work on Instagram, I like to bring in maybe some of the pinky purple into the leaves. I just think it builds up the colours beautifully and adds to the contrast. So I'm going back to that permanent magenta, and I'm going to drop it into the areas which I think are just that little bit darker.
I did talk about colour theory in the class, just in passing, but there's so much more to it. You know, I remember going to college and just did not understand the colour theory at all. So I think we can go in with my favourite ultramarine and a little bit of Payne's grey as well. Yeah, that's Payne's grey, and I'm just going to squint, make a decision about where the darkest leaves are, and it is about this area here, and pick up a bit more. And this leaf is very dark over there, and this one behind that central floral is also incredibly dark. And while the paint is still sitting on the surface, I want to keep introducing a little bit of the permanent magenta and the opera rose. I love watching it all merge together. So this leaf at the edges is, oh, I love it. I know it doesn't do this in real life, but it's amazing what the human mind can make allowances for. So let's go back to the Payne's grey, because I never finished this leaf off. This is probably one of the darkest areas here. And remember, because we are going in with ink, I still don't have to add too much details at this stage. I said there's a leaf doing an S shape here. I think I have to go back and pick up the lighter wash. Okay, we're almost there, actually. Let's take another look around. And I think some of the stems could do with a tiny bit more darkening up. Just adding a bit more pigment just to give that extra layer of information, like this one here. Well, I know this one goes behind that leaf, so that leaf needs to be, I think, needs to be just a tad darker. I'm going to add a bit of magenta to that. Oh, that's lovely. Now, I think I added too much water for this bit. I might add a bit more magenta there. And I think the bottom of the stem needs a tiny bit more emphasis. So I'm going to use a bit of the Payne's grey with the magenta. Yeah, this stem is definitely darker. And this leaf is very dark as well. So on this side, I know I've got my ring light to the left of me. I'm going to leave that. Oh, no, one last thing. I'm just going to drop in, because I can see that the some of the flowers look a tiny bit washed out. I'm just going to dab in some of the opera rose just to bring out some of the colours. That will just help it along. And I have a hairdryer on standby. And this is the part where we can discuss any other questions you have. I'll give you a little close-up of this. Whoa. I could let it, oh, I could do that. I'm going to help it along, actually. There's a pool of green just here. Just let that slide down along there. Oh, so lovely. Right. I think what I'm going to have to do is just quickly switch off my audio and give it a little blast off my hairdryer for 20 seconds, and then I will move on to the questions. So please. Right, now I need to work out how to unmute you all.
We can unmute ourselves, you know.
Oh, that's a good idea. Thank you. So let's see, what questions have we got?
Is your paper hot press or cold press? It is a Fabriano paper, and oh my gosh, I bought it in bulk after I heard somebody else do it, another teacher do it. So it is, I believe, cold pressed, because it does have a little bit of texture in it, but not very toothy. And I wanted to ask, how does it differ when I'm going through it live compared to watching me have it pre-recorded?
Well, there were some similarities, because I could hear your excitement when some happy mistakes happened, or when the paint would merge together in unexpected ways. And I also heard you go, oh, that's too much, I have to readjust this. And it's so helpful to hear how you respond and react to your painting. It just makes it so real for us, I thought.
Oh, thank you for this feedback.
That's true. It's not edited in any way. It is what it is.
Being a teacher, I've done quite a lot of live workshops in the past, and I don't know if I can do live workshops in the next 6 months. So next best thing that I can provide. Do you have more questions?
For me, it's always about the water and the paint mixture. The consistency is what I'm trying to say. Yours always turn out so much watery than mine. I mean, I've been trying to paint along with you, you know, and well, everything dries faster for me. And of course, I'm in Sacramento, where it's no humidity, very dry. So things tend to dry fast here. But as fast as I go, things dry up on my paper before yours do. And when I try to add more water to keep things wet, I seem to make it too weak. It doesn't have enough pigment in it. It gets too watery. And then when I add more pigment to, I don't know, it's still a process for me in figuring out that balance, do you know?
Yeah.
I think the same thing that Chris said is true for me.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm using hot press, and it dried so fast that I could really not get too much to merge, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I have to try a different paper.
I found that same problem, and I live in South Carolina, where it is extremely humid. It's not very dry at all, but it was drying fast. And when I added too much water, it seemed like all the pigments mixed together, and I didn't have a lot of variation. So it's just, it was really practicing more and learning my different brands of paints that I have too, because different pigments react differently. But I've noticed, Omar, what you did is you went and got your yellow green wash again and added that extra leaf. And I found that if I have some areas that dry out that I really want to add something else to, if I go back with that lightest color that I'm making that first basic shape with, that seems to help.
Yeah, I think it's really important to keep the wash as light as possible, because you can add more to it. If the wash is already too dark, there's less wriggle room. I know that sounds obvious.
It's like your rough draft, you know.
Yeah.
So, and you can change it.
Yeah.
Fab. Well, I'm afraid this is still a little bit damp, so I'm going to blast it with a hairdryer. If there's any other questions, please type it in, or wait until I finish. It'll be another 20 seconds. Let me mute myself again.
I like the granulation that she has on some of those leaves.
I think that's the Payne's Grey. Payne's
Is that the
Grey.
Payne's Grey?
And, well, I've got Cinerie Payne's Grey, and it's beautiful. It granulates beautifully. I love it. Omar, we're talking about the granulation in the paint. Was the granulation in the Payne's Grey? Is it the Payne's Grey that's granulating, or do all your pigments with Winsor Newton granulate?
I think it is the permanent magenta that's adding the granulation. I used it just to get an approximate colour. I don't always like using it. It looks very bright on the screen, but I think the Payne's Grey isn't very granulated at all. I'm going to just hold up this a little bit closer to the camera.
Oh yes, I see. Yeah, it's beautiful. I love the granulation.
Down lower on one of the leaves, though, seems like there's a bit of granulation. So I was wondering, that larger leaf on your left, I believe.
Yeah, I think that is where I've added the magenta, the permanent magenta, and it's caused that result. And it's the same here as well. Although I think that's more of, I added the opera rose to that. So that's why they look different. I'm going to have to blast this with the hairdryer just a tiny bit more, and then I will start on the inking. If I move the flower down a little bit, move the paper, I think I'm going to start on this side, even though they're a little bit damp. I'm hoping this will work fine. So I've got my, it's not the purple pumpkin, blue pumpkin nib, because it's slightly larger scale. And when I discuss nibs, people are always very interested. Some of it is how fine the, I'm just going to grab my mapping pen nib. So if you compare these two, this is just so much finer, the one with the pale handle. It's intuition. It comes with practice, because I use mapping nibs for a very long time, because I worked much smaller than what you're seeing me do here. So I know that this nib is going to give a much thicker line, and I think in proportion it will be better for sketch of this size. So that's one of the reasons why I choose the nibs that I do. I'm going to stand up again. All this time I've been standing up. Hold on, let me move this. I want you to see, if you squint, you can see that the dark areas are just as it comes towards the receptacle, and that's all I'm going to try and add. I'm not going to add all of it even, just some of them. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, it's pretty much like that. And I'm not outlining, I'm just squinting, and literally where I can see the darkest areas is where I'm adding the ink. And even though I haven't added any watercolour here, the petals stick out at an angle like that. Oh, that's lovely. That's just right. I'm just going to leave it just like that. I could add some texture in the receptacles, but I think it's only a young bud, so I'm going to add it to the buds which are a little bit more mature. And this one, the one just to the right of it, there is a lot more contrast happening there, and I actually might add a bit of information in the receptacle, and there's some overlapping leaves. The paper is just a tiny bit damp here, but that's all right, I can work with it. I might come back to that, but I think there's enough information there. If I look in there, or if I look in there, you're looking at it through the lens of the camera, it is very dark just there. So that is where I want to add an ink line. I'm not trying to outline it, I'm just trying to say this is where the darkest areas are going to be. These leaves kind of curl over a little bit like that, I think. Oh, and just behind it, I can see a leaf curling, not a leaf, a petal curling over, and I'd quite like to add that. Now I'm just squinting there, and I think it needs a little bit more. Yeah, there's too much negative space up here, so a bit more petals there. That's better, that's much better. And in terms of the receptacle, yeah, I think I'm going to add a few hints. Yeah, this section there is still damp, so I won't go near that.
Although I'm sure it would still achieve a very nice effect if the ink merged in there. The darkest areas, I might just have a tiny bit more receptacle there. I can come back to this. Generally, I kind of cast my eye over all the different areas as we start completing them and see if it's all balanced and harmonious. Now this one is very nice. I think one more petal is defined about here and here. I know there's a lot of leaves happening in the background, and there's actually other petals, other flower heads in the background, which I may add. Hold on, can you see that bit? Yes. Add that. That will give me the edge receptacle, and then one goes off at an angle about here. Well, there's a petal that curves round. There we go. And I think this one just, there's a few more petals that I didn't paint in as well. Oh, that's very nice. Oh, you know what? I might just leave that. Leave it there for now. And if I feel it, I need to come back to it, I can. So don't. One of the things that I know people have issues with is trying to do everything at once, and you don't have to. I can go round 2-3 times over and think, oh, this needs a bit more space. This needs a bit more space. But if you overcommit, it's very difficult to undo it unless you scan it and put it into Photoshop. You're all so quiet. Oh, I haven't muted you either. Now, I think with hindsight, I maybe have overworked some of the shapes in these petals in watercolor, but it's, now I can sit down now.
Onmar?
Yes?
Your ink looks so much darker than mine.
Really? Do you think it's the light? And what ink do you have?
The Winsor Newton, let's see, peat brown.
Really?
That's what I'm using too, and it's a much lighter. Yours looks like you're using black.
Really? Oh my goodness.
What are you using?
Well, I thought I was using peat brown, but maybe maybe I've got, I'm wondering if I got it mixed up with nut brown. Because this is nut brown, hold on, and this is peat brown.
I have nut brown as well, and it still comes out light.
Really? Because my daughter, as you may have guessed, my daughter uses my art materials a lot, which is fine. So I'm thinking she may have added the two together, but it wouldn't explain why it's so dark. Maybe
It could just be the screen, because we're all looking on the computer.
Yeah, but I know what you're saying. If I hold it up, it is very dark.
Looks like black.
It does. It might be also. I'm just going to try this out as a theory, because that blue pumpkin nib is so thick. It might be that it's holding so much ink, and there's so much ink being applied. So I'm just going to use this mapping nib, and no, it's still coming out dark. Oh, okay.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
No, it doesn't look quite as dark though.
Yeah, and also if your ink has been hanging around, it tends to evaporate a tiny bit and becomes very thick. It happens a lot with my Indian ink.
Is it necessary to shake the ink to mix it up or not?
No, I don't tend to. Not this ink. I sometimes use acrylic ink, and that needs shaking.
For the class, I actually used P.H. Martin's Hydrus watercolor instead of ink.
How did that turn out? I can't remember which one your project was.
Well, I did a few, but I just picked whatever color, you know, like the flowers. If it had purple in it, I used a purple, and it came out dark. I mean, they were all dark.
Did you say
but it went down nicely.
Were they Dr. Martin?
Dr. Martin, the Hydrus watercolors.
Yeah, I have those. I've never used them.
I use them as ink for my projects for this class. So
I'm going to try them. I mean,
Is India good to use?
Yeah, I used to use Indian ink a lot, but I found it takes a little while to dry. It takes a lot longer to dry. I've put too much ink on that now. And because I was often scanning things, it would leave marks on my scanner. So I found that the brown would dry that little bit faster, and it wouldn't leave as much marks if I let it dry properly. So while I've got my ink out, I'm sorry, in this section, I'm going to add definition to a few of the leaves, and you can see the edge of the watercolor there. It isn't accurate. So I mentioned before that I like to use ink as the backup to give a bit more accuracy, because I don't like to be accurate with watercolor. I just don't have that skill. So that this is my compromise. So this leaf here, so this section of the leaf actually overlaps the stem of the other one. There we go. Oh, we're almost done. Right, I've got 8 minutes. I'm going to be a little bit faster now. I know this one sort of curves here, and I wanted to add a little bit more shape there. Oh, that looks really nice with the white showing through there. I think that makes a lovely effect.
Do you like putting pressure on the nib to get a thick and thin line?
Yes, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
It is just preference. Some people like an even line. Using a fine liner, it will give you a much more even line, and you might like that look. And when I answer questions, I say it's so down to personal preference. You have to produce a lot of work and play around with a lot of materials to find out what suits you. I have a thing about opera rose. You might try it and think, ew, not for me. We're almost coming to the end here. I'm just going to add a bit of definition. And there's a few stray leaves here. I know this was bought in a store, but there's still a lovely randomness about it.
Is Opera Rose a Daniel Smith color?
It's a Winsor Newton one, but I know that they are pretty much, I know of another artist who loves her Opera Rose, and she uses, I think she uses Schminke. I might have that wrong, but she uses a mixture of Winsor Newton and Schminke. Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know. I've got one somewhere. And I just wanted to add a few more tendrils because there's a leaf just coming up behind there. I'm just going to quickly add that, and it comes behind this central stem. That's not bad.
That's pretty.
Beautiful.
So I'm going to call it, that's it.
Do you purposely not do all the leaves?
Oh no, good goodness no. I mean, I can't possibly add all the leaves.
No.
I think it would be crowded.
For inking them, do you just select a few?
Yeah. I mean, if you look what's happening down here, there's too much happening. If I were to do a shape study of this, I put that on a whoops. This, hold on, let me move that ink out of the way. If we did a shape study of this, there's just a mass of leaves in there. Right. And I've had to abstract out some of the shapes. I mean, I could add a few more lines to define the areas where there's leaf, but if we did a straight shape study, it's very compact here, and aesthetically I don't think it would help my piece. So I've picked and chosen what works for me. That's kind of like a metaphor for creating art. Just do what works for you. So thank you very much for joining me. I'm really pleased with this piece. It's got a lovely movement to it. I am open to any more questions.
Do you do your practices? I know that you've done your practices on other types of paper, but when you do something like this, do you put it in a binder of some sort to keep it, or instead of a journal?
No, I just keep it loose. I'm getting a plans chest very, very soon so that I can put all the stray, I've got piles and piles of just loose. Hold on, what else? This is from another class. This is one that I did from Stephanie Ryan's class. So they're all loose at the moment, and they don't really have a home at the moment. That's why I will get a plans chest. But when they're loose, it's a lot easier to scan as well. So I'm just going to quickly look at these other questions. I have a few minutes left. Forgive me if I've missed out any. My colours is not as bright as I'd like it to be. It really depends. I'm using the professional ones, but honestly, even the student grade ones, the Cotmans, you can still produce an awful lot. Wonderful contrast there. So it might be the water content. Do you use Procreate or Fresco on the iPad? I use Procreate. I've not used Fresco so far, but I will probably get round to it at some point. Do you use a Wacom when you use the computer? I just use a very basic Wacom. I'm going to stop sharing so that you can see me. How do I do that? How's that? So, oh yes, I just use a very basic. For years, I used a cheap Wacom Bamboo, and now I've gone on to a slightly less cheap. What's it called? It's just called a One. So I don't use anything expensive. There were 4 people waiting. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that I didn't see you guys were waiting because I've been painting. I really should have checked at some point. But as I said previously, I'm hoping that this is going to be a regular event. We will get some of these teething problems resolved. If you would like to email me with any other feedback afterwards, I'd be really happy to hear it, because I'm doing it to create a better connection with my students away from social media. I hope you understand why.
Absolutely.
Do I ever?
I mean, at present, I am off social media, and I will be until mid-September. So being able to connect with you like this, face to face, not using emojis, is wonderful. And I hope you've enjoyed it as much as me.
Yeah, it's been great.
We have been honored that we were kind of your guinea pigs for this. This is just wonderful that we were able to be a part of your first one like this. Thank you for being here.
No, it's
Generous with your time.
A win-win situation. You know, I have an issue. I've never done a Zoom call. You've been very gracious with your time and generous with your time
It's
Wonderful.
been
Very real and very authentic and kind of intimate. I like the fact
Yeah.
that we see each
Yeah.
other and you. So it's been
Yes.
absolutely wonderful.
So I just want to say, you guys are absolutely amazing.
Can people hold up their paintings?
Oh, yeah, this is something that I gotta get used to.
Oh, that's beautiful, Ramona.
Thank you.
So good everyone's
Oh my
are.
gosh.
Aw.
Oh man. You guys are so sweet. Oh, I've been fretting over this for weeks.
It was
It's
wonderful.
like holding hands around the world.
Yeah.
That's right.
Hands around the world.
Oh,
I love it.
honestly, I think I might cry. I might have a little cry in the next room. I know we some of us have been in lockdown, and it's been difficult to communicate, and sometimes emotions are heightened. So coming together like this has really soothed my heart.
Totally agree.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So true.
Yes.
Very nice distraction. And it's good to put faces to the names that you see.
I get trolled on IG Live as well, which I don't like, and that's part of the reason why I don't want to do them. So I want to do this more often, because look at how we're talking and making friends,
It was
and
fun.
it will be better next time.
Oh, it was great.
That's good
Well,
enough.
that was amazing because
Look forward to it. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Anmar.
Weekend.
pleasure.
you,
Take
Amar.
care.
I think I'm going to go and have a gin and tonic as well.
Great idea.
Yes,
Now you're talking.
here, I suppose I
Thank
could.
you so much, and I'll see what I can. I really hope you have enjoyed my first ever Zoom workshop that I have managed to upload onto YouTube. If you're interested in the full technique for my organic and expressive florals, please check out my Skillshare class. It is in the link below, along with other watercolour classes on Skillshare. I hope this workshop will be the first of very many that I'll be able to upload to YouTube, so please stay tuned. Bye for now.